Jingle, 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 pay attention. From the previous video, I saw some comments that really grabbed my attention. The main thing I saw is, in general, confusion that you want to draw, but either the progression seems unclear or almost impossible, specific subjects are intimidating, or all the tutorials that you'll see on YouTube or Instagram start from a different subject. So this might look just as, if not more intimidating at first, but I want you to start training your mind for observation and mentalization. Why am I intimidated? Because it looks too much. Why does it look too much? Because I haven't looked at it logically, or maybe I'm not sure if I'm interpreting it right. There could be a number of reasons, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Not understanding is a mutual feeling for all of us, but an artist can use ambiguity as the fuel for wanting to know more, which will get you to do research, ask very specific questions until it makes sense. Point is, you need perspective for boxes, and you need to get really good at those because everything is made of them. Perspective with vanishing points and drawing from reference is not always what you'll be using because it's for training your mind to think in 3D. So you can sketch up a base like this, for example, in like 5 to 10 minutes. And this will basically guide all the rest that you might put on this base form, assuming you have the tools. It's no coincidence that anatomy is after perspective with soft surface in between, because it works on the same principles but on a more complex level. And no wonder you feel overwhelmed if you have problems with drawing boxes. You will have problems with organic shapes, and you're already missing two crucial aspects of a human at this point, not even mentioning anatomy, which is an extra layer of restrictions, quote unquote. And on top of everything else, you don't have any more mental resources left to worry about the other two. And to make this simulation complete, I'll ask you the same thing that I ask my students. Does it all make sense? If there's a single thing that doesn't make sense, you gotta tell me, because I don't know how your brain works, and I need to hear your perspective with your own words. If you want a free, honest critique, start your comment with a star emoji, follow me so you don't miss it, and I'll try my best to go over your stuff in the next big YouTube video. And now for art style. So, unfortunately, what most people call art style is so wrong, I can't even begin to explain why that is. Instead, I'll tell you what is art style, and I think you'll see the vision and my problem with this whole phrasing. Although one thing that's essential to understand for this is visual library and how it works. Common people call this drawing from memory, but what I think it really is quite literally a library. Simply calling it this should remove some of the mysticism and reframes it as something you build with effort, using tools and active thinking. Hey, future me here, re-recorded because I was saying a bunch of nonsense. So the way you can imagine a library, as I'm drawing here, with a bunch of empty shelves, and with no books, you have nothing to offer. You have to fill them up, but you need external sources. Those could be researchers, um, people who want to tell their stories, and using those, you write books with a tool, which can range from handwriting to a typewriter to maybe having a fast typing championship assistant, and you just have to dictate. And in art, these tools are um, like the equivalent of handwriting an entire book for an entire library is just taking measurements and brute forcing your way to drawing the best representation of the reference. And as you go up to a typewriter or the assistant, that's like when in art you start understanding the reference. So you basically speed up the entire process. It takes effort and time to get the typewriter or the assistant. Um, but once you have those, it's going to speed up the entire process exponentially because you're tackling everything from multiple perspectives. So in this case, I looked at this leopard and I wanted to represent it the best way possible. So what did I look at throughout this entire thing? I looked at the silhouette. What's what's the overall outline of the whole thing? How wide is the silhouette? And in comparison, how long it is? What's this ratio? If this is off, the final drawing will be off as well. And this is where observation comes into place. You're observing the reference as best as you can and also understand it. It's one thing to take measurements and try to draw everything as accurately as possible, but without closely examining it and understanding, it's going to be really tedious, and I would say most of the time not going to work out. You can get lucky, but it's not going to be consistent. So, it's about studying what you're drawing, not just mindlessly drawing. And, after I draw this, I basically filled up a tiny bit more in my visual library about big feline cats, lighting, form, silhouette, character, because everything has a character, everything has a likeness to it. And that's one of the other things you're aiming for with each reference, to capture the likeness of the source. This is what I did here. Even though I changed lots on this one, for example, I still tried to keep the likeness, and I was thinking, how can I put the expression of this cat on a more humanoid character? Similar with this, I was making the sketch until I didn't feel like it captured this motion perfectly. Because you need to understand the head is rotating to the right, one of the ears is going to the back from like inertia, and just the motion of the entire face. What are the dynamics of the whole thing? And if you get better at observation, you'll be much better at noticing if something's off, and not knowing exactly what's off in your reference is okay. The bad part comes in when you just leave the drawing and start something new. That's why I always say, just because it's a simple sketch, it it doesn't mean you have to finish it in 5 to 10 minutes. You can take 1 hour, you can take 2 hours with it. It doesn't matter as long as you're learning with it. And if I had spent 3 hours with this sketch, I would have learned much more as opposed to if I did 5 minute sketches and as many of those as I can fit in 3 hours. Because I wouldn't be mindful about the drawing, and it would be basically going into autopilot. So the main thing was art style. And many people think that art style is something that you almost choose consciously, that this is gonna be my art style and that's how I'm gonna draw things. But it's not that easy. Art style requires tons and tons of understanding of everything. So here we have the face of the cheetah. For speed's sake, I'm gonna trace it just a little bit. You can see what I mean. Here's the nose, the mouth, teeth, bottom jaw. Here's the chin. The muzzle comes kind of here. There you got the um, cheekbones. And side of the skull comes down over here. Rest is just fluffy fur. And the bottom jaw. You know, like this, we have a sort of perfect representation, a perfect copy of the reference. Now, if I did this with observation, it would have just taken longer, but you would get something similar. It doesn't need to be a one-to-one match, because what you want to do is capture the exacts. We are not stylizing at all here. Some fur there. The wrinkles on the nose as it's like grinning. Some depth I might have to erase because it's a very fluffy texture, and in these cases it's near impossible to rely on solely nothing else but lines. Lines always represent shadows, and there isn't much shadow in this case. So you have to use some cross-hatching, and you need some understanding of volume. What do you do if you don't have an understanding yet? What do you do if you wouldn't be able to draw this kind of texture and these shapes from memory? Well, that's why you have your eyes and your brain to really closely examine and determine that how am I gonna get the same silhouette? Bottom of the nose, there's this little black part. We see some of the gums here, but we see more of that here. So I'm changing the thickness of the line. You really want to emphasize how we see more of the gum and the inside of the mouth on the side here. And now the top of the teeth are over there. The canines are coming here. And then you have the little teeth. And then the rest of them. And now the rest. I'm looking at the silhouette, like the relation, because everything is contributing towards the final picture. So I'm connecting, like, what's the angle between the top and bottom teeth? First, they go in this angle, sort of just going downwards, and the bottom ones are aiming outwards. And of course they're not touching, but like, what's the range in between them? I'm giving some volume here. This little line, every line is with purpose. I don't just put this here. This is to represent that the teeth is fitting into the gum from perspective. But since I'm doing it with a incredibly small brush, I just don't have space to detail all that, so I need to give it some sort of outline, so I make that outline to be as accurate as possible. And this color here, this value change, is also really important, because our brain is quite smart and it wants to understand everything logically. Even if it doesn't tell us, it wants to know. And if you don't put this here, it's gonna think that it's one unit. If you put this, it's gonna think it has really long teeth and the gums are up here, which wouldn't make much sense. So you kind of wanna indicate that that's where the teeth begin to be exposed. Now some cross-hatching for the inside, because I don't want to spend all day here, but I still need the value difference, the contrast between the teeth and the rest of the mouth to indicate that, yeah, there is difference in depth. So what else is happening? I see this bottom part, the slight like inside of the mouth that's showing here, and it's going down in an arc. Boom, bigger shape, sort of goes next to the rest, but it has thickness. Look at this. This kind of thing, it's much easier if you understand the shape of it. Again, it's nothing more than just observation. You're observing and you pay attention to the reference. See, here's the side plane. Here's the top plane. Top plane is not visible at the very end, but it becomes visible here and goes all the way through. And over here at this part is where it kind of transitions into multiple faces. So it goes something like this. It goes downwards here, and now it's going up on the side. I think you kind of start seeing at this point why knowing perspective is so essential. Because how are you supposed to copy all this if you're not comfortable with simple boxes? These are the same as boxes. I'm using the same principle as here, which is visualizing a three-dimensional object. But instead of having to come up with my own interpretation, I have a reference. The reference is telling me which way these planes are facing. And with any kind of lighting scenario, even with like an overcast lighting, there is still enough information to see all of these details. And if you don't, then there's some painting techniques. In a nutshell, I would say like just blend those areas with one value, but it's a little bit more complex than that. So I'll touch on that some other time. You see, what's up with the eyes? It still doesn't have that grinning feeling. It doesn't have this strength, this tension on the upper part of the face. And then I try to assess with the reference. What do I see here that I don't see here? And I don't see the contrast. Let me just touch up the nose a little bit. You see, I'm not drawing this line all the way through because this line is representing the front plane and we see some of the top plane of the nose. These are all details that if they are missing altogether, it's gonna be something else and it's gonna affect the overall big picture. Some lines here, just to have some details there. But now let's see. There's this line and we're gonna have the contrast. Nose, the skin wrinkling up, all going into one source. And there is the nose bridge. Nose ridge goes up there. The brow line. This is gonna be part of when I stylize this. And this is the cheekbone. And the reason I know that is because I know where it is for humans, and animals and humans are pretty much the same. The only difference is the proportion, and you know where they are in slightly different positionings, they have slightly different sizes, but generally speaking, if you know how to draw a human, you can sort of guess the anatomy of an animal as well, even without explicitly seeing the cheekbone there. But you know, it kind of also indicates, because we have this light source from the top, and we have a shadow here because it's being blocked with the iridge. So this surface change, or more so like surface change over here, that indicates that there must be a bone pushing the surface up and then going down because the light doesn't reach here. So that's the only logical explanation. You know, there's always multiple ways of finding this out. But the last depth I'm missing is some shadow. This is almost contact shadow, so if I were to change the lighting, that might still stay there. Some here. I think it'll need a little more work for the eyes, so they have the exact feeling. Size might be off a tiny bit. And I also want to add some of the lines that are not shadows, but are still details that add to the overall picture. No, not that. What's not working? That's here. Line goes down there. Chin. I want to erase this a bit. And it's the angle of the eye. I see it now. Bit of erasing there. Also, the outline is a bit too harsh. It gives the feeling as if it wasn't fluffy and furry. And now to some of the angles. It's always about angles most of the time. If it goes like this, it's a bit of fluff change there. I'm also taking measurements, which I will explain more in depth some other time. But also, just to give a quick explanation, you wanna face your reference and put the pencil or your stylus against the angle that you're measuring, and then move like above your drawing area and face that perfectly, because if you're doing it digitally, it's gonna cause distortions if you're not facing it, just like with like any kind of plane. If there's a circle, there's your reference, and if you look at it from the side, it's not gonna be a circle, to say the least. But I think you can tell that it's not a circle. Yeah, so like it doesn't work. End of story. Okay, what else? Another thing you might notice, and maybe you have this question, is like how I go about choosing the details. What I do is what you also should do and start training your mind for. It's not an overnight thing, but it's basically looking at the whole reference at all times. I'm never leaving it out of sight. I'm looking at everything. It doesn't seem big enough. More there. Something with there. I need to add more dark to here, I feel like. And take some away from there. And so what we also want to achieve with this is this really like cheeky, smiling, grinning feeling, this this guy is up to something no good. And right now it kind of looks like he's in agony and he's getting his balls twisted or something. So when I say I'm looking at the whole thing, I'm looking for the details that make it so that feeling is not gonna be there. And let's see if I add value to these. No. What is up? I think it must be the angle. Something missing from there. Line going down the side of this part. Or maybe I have to create more contrast between the teeth. And when we get to the point where it's complete, in a sense that we achieved the final look, the very specific look that we were looking for, that's when we can start stylizing it. More dark there. I think it could be the placement of the eyes. Let me try that. I specifically looked this reference up because it has such a funky look to it that I wanted to represent it. I want to make it perfectly. Because that feeling, this expression, can be translated to another character, to my characters, for example. But yeah, I'll talk about those in another video. So I think the transition bit around the muzzle is much different. This is another thing that people mess up is while drawing from reference, you're not supposed to be relying on your visual library. If you draw many things from references, you already have some stuff in your library. So if you draw furries, you have the knowledge that there's the head and there's the muzzle and there's the nose, and part of it is almost like symbolism, like you're drawing them instinctively because you learn that this is how a furry looks like, but you might not be drawing it from understanding, because if you understand it, you can twist and match all of these things. And that's a thing I noticed with many furry artists, is that all their characters look the same because they might have found one template for furry characters, and they might be comfortable with it. If that template, you keep reusing it from your visual library, it's gonna show because you'll keep the proportions somewhat the same. But thing is, improving that is quite easy. You just draw different stuff and put your visual library or your memory drawing kind of needs to the side and just bear with it for a little while. Something is still not right. I think mm-hmm. Needs to come from a different angle. That's what's gonna give it the energy it needs. So it's a bit bigger. What are the eyes angle? I swear to God, I can't seem to find it. That seems good. That seems good too. So might be these lines affecting. Look at the big picture. Still a bit too round. And the ears. Wait a second. Still seems to be in agony. What the hell? You can slander me in the comments, but this is what I mean, that this is a challenge. And the learning experience. Some are going to be easier, some are going to be harder. That's just the way it is. Can we get back to you now? Okay, a few hours later, but I'm back. I have no idea where I was, but I did notice that the issue is the length of the mouth. So it's just not wide enough. Should be reaching to until like to be below the eye. So see this, the axis of the head. It's another thing I like to pay attention to is what aligns with this line. How do things align? It's kind of a triangle. Not gonna lie, I should have started with this, but I may be stupid. Anyways, you see, I wanted to save some time with tracing the overall outline for you, but just made it worse. Because it made me look over a bunch of important stuff in the early recording, got me stressed. But I mean, we're already on YouTube, so What am I stressing for? I think if you're here, you're not rushing anywhere. You don't need to be entertained for every second of the minute to not get bored. And there's something that you should be practicing anyway. Holy. Okay. So I could do it with the lasso tool, but let's go analog. I'm gonna do it the old-fashioned way. See, just big loose lines. I'm just trying to find shapes. It's getting there. It's getting there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's just erase this part. I need it. It's gonna be easier to start from the get-go because the initial teeth, um, I determined their overall size and proportions based on the mouth. And now that the mouth is off, there's really no point in continuing with those proportions. Let's just restart. It's gonna take much less time anyway. Okay. As you can see, I'm overlapping the teeth. I'm not just going like this, I'm going like this. It's another case of already thinking in space. This cannot be done if you still have to like very consciously think about the all the spatial stuff, and that's kind of the main reason I like to focus perspective, or at least have a good foundation perspective, because with other practices it can be improved, but you need the initial understanding, otherwise there's like a gap and it's just gonna make everything much harder, because you want to focus on the fun details, but if you focus on those with no perspective, yada yada, like stacks up, and it's not gonna look the way you want it to look. Am I messing it up again? Jesus Christ. See, I'm talking and I can't talk and draw at the same time, but I'm trying my best. I get distracted. I'm almost simulating your distraction and you need to pay attention to these things. Like, I guess that's how it feels when you forget about important stuff, and when you finish it, you just realize that how did I mess it up? It was so obvious. But yeah, because you were paying attention to the perspective and stuff, like how I'm paying attention to what I'm saying and whether it makes sense or it has anything to do with what I said 20 seconds ago. Honestly, I would much rather just make YouTube videos because there it's I guess it's probably easier to find the patient people. And not gonna lie, I already done the cutting for the Instagram Reels part of this video already, and it was a headache. I think it's right below 3 minutes, and that's like a threshold. Funny thing, like when you go over 3 minutes, Reels is gonna notify you that Reels over 3 minutes are not going to get recommended to new people, like non-followers, only to your followers. So yeah, going over a minute or even 30 seconds sometimes is already kind of risky, and you need to win the audience really, really quickly. But yeah, like going over 3 minutes is actively just not gonna show you video to new people, which sucks, but at least I learn a little bit of faster talking. And yeah, if I want to show drawing process while talking in an Instagram video, I have to pre-record the drawing and then talk over it, which I tried, but like it's annoying. Okay, I think it looks like it's suffering again. Let me add the shadow. What's not right? What's not right? I'm like popping between the two. Fuck it. Gonna use lasso. It's the chin. I think it's the chin. Now I'm doing a measurement. I'm putting my pencil here, or pen, and connecting it to a specific point. Yep, it's not wide enough. Oh lordy lord. Let's see how this works. You know what? Let me examine. You know what? Let's redo this whole part. Edge of the eye. I also should have done the big picture much earlier. goes in, goes out. Okay, I think it's getting there. So now I'm looking at the negative space here. Mhm. So there's this black part, then goes up, down, and it surrounds the front teeth. Bruh. See, now it's so much closer. Of course, I didn't do a screenshot, but you can just run the video back 20 minutes and see the difference. It's easier to restart sometimes. This is another thing, never get attached to your drawings. What matters is your skill. It's not the individual works. Because technically the skill is something that cannot be taken away from you. As opposed to a drawing, they can steal it. But you get what I mean. Okay, you're closer and closer to this cheeky, very funky look. It's like laughing at you. Maybe he, I don't know, pulled a bomb in your pants and like, ah. So there's much less space on the top of the head. This line comes, then this little shadow. Seems a bit too wide. Also, if you're drawing along, that's a bonus. And also, if you draw along, you can comment this picture on the Instagram post, and you know, I can look at it like what could be off, and also then you have some sort of comparison. I'm not saying this is the magnum opus and it has to look like this. Now I see, oh my god, I'm gonna crash out. Flip your canvas, flip your canvas. I thought I don't have to, and now you see what happened. Oh my god, the nose is also in the wrong place. That's why you flip your canvas. I got tunnel vision, I got used to the drawing. I'm not gonna lie, I feel really brave about the fact that I'm gonna upload this full on YouTube and you're gonna see all these mistakes I make. But let this serve as reassuring that it doesn't need to be perfect. You need to notice it. And then when another time I draw something similar, it's already gonna be in my brain and I'm gonna remember the mistakes I've made. Also, in general, it's natural to be taking your time and paying attention to stuff, to anything that you're not familiar with. Of course, I may be familiar with feline faces. I'm not familiar with this specific face. And if I'm checking, then I see that that's when the neck comes out. And the overall body position is part of the feeling. Holy! I'm getting lost in the sauce. I swear to God, I cannot draw while talking. Honestly, this is the first time I've tried it, and it's incredibly exhausting. I might just go simpler on these eyes. Let me go bigger with the brush. Something just doesn't fit. And I'm not gonna leave this. I told you never leave the drawing. I'm not gonna leave this. I got the space for it. I already started. And even if I don't finish it in this video, but I kind of want to, like, holy Christ. I think I'll finish it, but what is not working? I also don't want to do the like proportion kind of thing. It's also an option, but I should have been doing that from the get-go if I wanted to. Something really feels off. Doing some measuring now. Is it because of the chin? Because this line comes here, that line comes there. That's the whole thing seems too wide, and there has to be an explanation for that. And I think I found it. So here I'm now thinking that the fur has a specific flow. It's not just fur, it has this kind of shape going down the middle. And that shape is... Yep. It's getting closer and closer. And I'm realizing how much of an impact the whole pose. So the whole pose has on the emotion that it gives off, the vibe. Nope. It's, think, did I get it? Did I get it? I'm also checking the widest point is over there, and it's back to agony. Oh my god. Ugh. It's so Jover. It's so Jover. Let me actually try to... No, dumb idea. I don't know how long I want to make this. I think it's gonna be a long video. But I mean, I trust you guys. Maybe I speed up some of the parts. I'm genuinely so lost. Obviously, if I wanted to create something different, I I wouldn't be so keen on like getting the exacts exactly, but that's what we're here for. Also, I'm sweating like crazy. It's unbelievable. I would be running my AC, but I think it would sound like I'm on an airport. So I just turned it off for the recording. That's kind of the only reason I feel like I'm rushing. Also, sometimes I can recommend, or I always recommend, like with sketching in general, is it's one of those weird concepts that try to be quick but don't rush. Which essentially what it is you want to go quick only to see whether the concept works or not. Like to basically, as quickly as possible, you make all these little mistakes instead of taking super long, like how earlier I spent so long with just the face without even giving a chance to um, do something with the rest of the neck, the body. We don't even have like a full pose, but now we're getting much closer. Let me give some tone to the nose, if that gives anything towards the overall feeling. And I really feel like we're just missing shadows to really show this. Somehow it still feels like the mouth is too big. It's the right width, but it's not the right height, I feel like. Mhm. trying to keep the tones a little bit out from the back part because that's not the darkest part, and to I feel like to give the grinning vibe its best representation is to somewhat keep the teeth in contact in the back, like literally the silhouette that I've been talking about. That even though there are details in the mouth, I'm looking at the silhouette of the full dark part. I might tone the whole thing a little bit like this, and now go in with an eraser and get the details like this. So once again, you're kind of doing painting instead of drawing. Oh wait, I'm kind of realizing. Zoom out, guys. I'm making mistakes here so you can make less mistakes yourself. Go! Something still feels off. It's much better, but it's still not the same character. Holy, I'm dying. We don't stop until perfection. Maybe my expectations are too high as to like how accurate I want to get. But again, I'm trying not to get in the crazy details. Just the silhouette. Teeth is not long. This tooth. Let's match the other one. Now the other one on the bottom. Let's add some of the dark parts with the gum, the top of the teeth. There's this little bump coming out on the side, just like here. And how this side part comes back in. We got this part with this specific angle. Here. these are not aligned. Again, normally I don't mind it at all taking long, but now the recording is pressure. Okay, wait a second. Did we find it? Yes. That's the look. That is the look. Could be a bit closer. Could be a bit longer teeth on the bottom. Yes. Covering the bottom like that. Hidden. Okay. Covers those teeth. Bit of erasing there, but add the darkness back here. Oh yes. I'm gonna pull these teeth a little bit lower so we can both show the sharpness. Oops. And the gums, because they come in like this angle, almost symmetrical to this part. Which comes there. There's a bit of shadow in between. Cutting it down. Do you see the vision? It's probably too late to say this, but yeah, you should be drawing along. But maybe you can just rewatch the video, put it in the background, or just put on some music. I think you had plenty of time to screenshot this reference. And these are the dark parts that I'm just going to blend in all together. I think I mentioned it already, like it's kind of almost painting already. But a general rule of thumb is you either want to emphasize what's in the shadows or what's in the light. So, or it's going to be more balanced if you choose one and blend the other side. But again, I'm just saying things, and I would much rather show that in action with the specific painting. Did I fuck it up again? I should have just stopped there. Or am I still... How do I do this? I say something and I literally just don't do it. It's crash out time. I'm also softening the lines between the teeth to make them blend more. It's one of those things that I can't believe. I can't believe I've done this. Well, I really just hope it makes you feel better, that to know that everyone struggles with something to some extent. I wouldn't consider myself as like a professional artist. But if you have, then there you go. Like, I struggle with this stuff. Now I'm showing it to you. I'm basically naked. Or I'm just with my pants down on fire. Jeez. Hmm. That, that. That. Mm. Good news is, probably my close friends are not gonna watch all the way through, because I mean, they have better stuff to do. So only artists are gonna see this. Unless they fast forward this specific time frame. Which of course the chances are low, but never zero. Yeah, all this fluffy outline is messing with me. I do know I can't use lines, but I also don't want to make the entire outline just cross-hatching, but I might just have to do that, because it doesn't work otherwise. Here there's some fur going in the opposite direction coming from the back, so that contrast I feel is necessary. And then it's shifting back for the front legs. Still, the face doesn't feel round. And could it be because of this part? Chin also feels way too big, and it shouldn't have such a strong contrast. Jenny, it's so weird. It's like I'm blanking out while I'm trying to explain things, and I have no idea how I get to a certain point. Now that's too puffy. Cheetahs have this very specific shape here that mhm, mhm. Many times another reason I feel like your volumes can feel off is for the very reason that lines equal shadow, and if there's some indicators that there's light and shadow, which there are with the nose, I already established on the sketch that there is shading. So if I just put random cross hatchings here and there that are not following a light shadow basis, or yeah, I think you could call it that, then it's gonna confuse the overall picture. Because light equals form, and if there's a wall and I put a shadow here, then it's gonna be round. But if I put one here as well, then it's gonna feel less round. Feels like there's a bump. If I wanted to have a bump, then I switch or modify the silhouette as well. Probably make it lighter. There's just a bit of bump. Maybe we have like this little weird egg shape. But I think it came out pretty good. You see, it was worth it. At least I do not regret anything. Feels okay. Now it seems much happier than before. And if you just fast forward it here to see the result, then there's the result. If not, then I'm very proud of you. Let's put some lines of the pattern. Maybe this shadow as well. Yep. Not gonna lie, it feels too blocky. Let me measure. Let's put some shadow here. And here, so the boundary is like that. I'm not gonna use this direction because that's where I see the fur is flowing. And now that was it. Need a little humanness, you know, this kind of line of this cheek coming up. There we go. Not exactly the same thing, but it's got the cheekiness to it that I was looking for. And this part is facing that. I might add a little more shadow there. And now an eyebrow. The evil laugh. Shadow. Yep. I think we got it. I'm looking at the other monitor now to see a different view, and like from the OBS. Yes. That's what I was looking for. Should I leave it, chat? I think I should leave it before I mess it up again. Less is more. I wouldn't call this less. It's already in the more, but it's less than what it could be if I continue. And yeah, that one. Wait. Oh, wait, this was also like a necessary line. Oh, but the body starts from lower. Wait a minute. And also, it tucks in more. And then it starts to go lower. Wait, let me just... Oh no, that's what we need is the action, something showing that the neck part is also this volume here is pretty important. Everything is important, Jesus. That's why you need to filter like what's important but not as important as other things. Easy to say, or easier to say, as you can see, because I'm straight up not doing what I'm saying, but gah. Yeah, just the only part that bothers me a bit is that the eye is not exactly going all the way in. This part goes in because maybe it folds differently, but oh my gosh. Okay, I think I'll call it a day because I also have a class coming up. But I hope you enjoyed this little video. And Jesus, did I forget to talk about stylization? I honestly don't remember because it was like it's been like 3 hours ago when I edited the rest of the video. Yeah, a little bit of like the stylization. Fuck it, I can't stop. So, anyways, the way I would go about stylizing it is obviously start with the of course. So, of course, I would be from the get-go. I would have the stylized version in mind, and obviously I kept the original. I'm not gonna just erase 2 or 3 hours of work. I don't even know how long it took, Jesus. And like 60% of it was just, finding the right lines, the right proportions. And so yeah, point is, I'm like checking the muzzle, like the position of the anatomical parts. And personally, I like to give the eyes a little bit more personality, like here with the eye shadow. The other one, this one I didn't do anything with, but here is, as you can see, it's massively changed because it's probably a male specimen, and I wanted to change that. So here, what I'm gonna do is kind of achieve a similar look, but with a more human eye. And I'm not just drawing random lines. This is like the inside curving part. It's like how it goes into the tear canal. And it's basically the eyelids closed. So, I like to draw this up all the time, that sometimes we mistake style with, what should I call it? Brain fart. Holy symbolism. So this is an eye. That's how an eye works. There's an eyeball. It's surrounded by two eyelids, which has a thickness like so. That sits on the side of the head. This is really exaggerated, just, to show the functions and everything. And there's the iris, which we really don't need now. But point is, many times when people are drawing anime eye, they draw like this, and that's why they can only draw an eye from one angle, because they learned from an anime or from other anime references that that's how you draw an eye. Subconsciously, they might have an idea of why these lines are, but side by side, you see the resemblance. So for stylization, you're just taking away detail, and it's the same thing. But instead of drawing both the top eyelid with the tear canal, with the bottom eyelid, with both like skin parts here, because that's also an option to draw it like this. I could add more detail to show the shadow between the tear canal and the eyeball, and there's many other things. But yeah, you can stylize by intentionally removing detail and keeping some of them. And that's the key part. Probably heard it tons of times, learn the rules before you break them. That's the reason. Because if you learn the rules, you can break them however you want. If there's a face in this very extreme angle, there's the face, kind of the jaw. Let's make it a bit tilted. Oh, not that tilted, only. You know, if you know the angle, if you know the anatomy, you can quickly make the stylized eye with intention. Bit of trial and error. But thing is, at this point, you can also look at the references of other anime characters, and because you understand the anatomy, you can draw those characters from any other angle. And you also know that there's the nose ridge. This eye would be hidden, probably. Going with a really big brush, but that kind of helps with trying not to put too much detail. Yeah, something like this. So the nose ridge and this part over here, where the eye socket is with the brow ridge. And like this, you know that you have to put the eyebrows a little bit more forward. The eyebrows always sit relative to the eye more forward and up. It's not in the same position. And this is why people confuse this a lot, because in anime they mostly see the characters from a 3/4 view or something, and they have this one eye, two eyes, nose, mouth. Let's make them small. And the eyebrows. She's really scared because she knows something. Oops. And she should be eating some more because she's almost a skeleton. Anyways, got sidetracked. So you just see the eyebrows here, but you don't know the structure behind it. So you might draw it from a different angle, and you might draw them here, which is viable, but is it intentional? That's the main thing you have to recognize with everything. Did you put that line there with intention? Did you want to put the line there, or you just put it there because it felt right, and you rolled with it? Let's show some more lines. That's another thing. You can add lines for the eye ridge, for the eyebrow here, but depending on how you want to stylize, you remove them. But these lines still determine other anatomical parts. So if you don't draw it there, the eyebrows still have to follow the anatomy. Something feels off. Anyways, let's erase it because it's taking too much time. Point is, these two lines are intentional. Oops, I totally forgot that was there on the same layer. Okay. And I'm also adding the eyeshadow because that's gonna give it that punch. Eyebrow wasn't there to begin with, but yeah, I already had this in mind. I started this document like yesterday, I think, and I already knew what I wanted to make of this character. And now I'm just putting the nose there. And I'm trying to reduce the details as much as possible, make it just a bit more human. Make the chin smaller. If the mouth is open, so probably bigger forehead. Oops. And I might just give her a bit of lips, to be honest. Not much, because the mouth is stretched. Mm-hmm. Putting up the nose a bit. Because I also want a specific head shape. I'm gonna put up like a Patreon exclusive video where I'll talk a little bit about the OCs that I have planned. I can already see some of them posted on my Instagram. Well, I think all of them. Maybe I haven't posted one of them. Anyways, at the neck. Forehead back because it's still I want to keep this angle the same. So I'm basically using this as the line for this muscle that comes from the side of the head. And I'll probably make the mouth smaller. You know what? I might just go full. I'm really just testing with a bunch of things. Trying to do it quick so I see the full picture sooner. Maybe it... Mouth definitely has to be higher up. Mm-hmm. So making the smaller nose, but we keep it cat. Oops. And now it just feels weird because I brought the mouth up, but not the bottom of the chin. So, you know, that's gonna change everything. Might move the eyes in a little bit. Gonna give her a more prominent brow ridge, but not too much because I don't want to make her look weird because of that. Anyways, neck. I'll have to add back a bit more volume to the eyes. Because, you know, now it's a more complex case because I'm looking for the same feeling like previously, but with different details. In some aspects, it's easier. In others, it's more difficult. But to be honest, I still love it. It's a bit more loose, a bit more experimental. And okay, now it just looks weird because of the eyebrows missing. So something like the position of the nose, it's still going to be important. The position of the nose relative to the eyes, because here's the head. It's bigger. Nose shape, probably not the same, but you know, we know that the nose is below the eyes. So that's one line, two line. And the lower I put it, the less it's gonna feel like it's facing upwards. So if I put it here, it's more closer to the No, that's gonna make it look like it's open. Mm-hmm. Maybe the lips are really working against the whole design. I don't think it should. Yeah, because it's not facing down. Just wanted to try a different shape. It has to be facing down. I'm dying of this heat. I'm profusely sweating. Oh my god. We persist. Let's go with a bigger brush. Mhm. Same thing with the ears, by the way. The head position. We know it's on top of the head, so if we're looking from this angle, it's gonna be eye, ear, nose. But if we let's go back, eye, ear, nose. You see that's the distance. Oops, no. Okay, I copied. That's good there. Push down. But if I look from this angle, it's gonna be ear, eye, nose. You can already see that it's much different. Both ratios are smaller. So that's also why I can't really put the ears on the top. I mean, I could, maybe I would just have to make it smaller, but I'm imagining that the head is like a box like this. If I viewed from a 3/4, it would be something like this. So if the head is there, nose, blah blah blah, eyes there, nose there, then the ears would be like here. I think it makes sense. Makes sense is one thing, the other thing is actually executing, and I'm getting exhausted. Too big. Another thing with proportions, if you're making something bigger, you have to make something else smaller. And that's why it's nice to have the lasso tool when we're ideating and have nothing exact. And honestly, I can't speak for others, but I feel like this is how most character designs go, because you want to go through many iterations and you want to see what works, what doesn't, and you don't know what character I'm trying to recreate here, but I'm looking for almost as specific of a vibe as I was with the actual tiger. Uh, Cheetah. I'm just gonna say big cat. As you can see, we've deleted almost all of the details that we had previously. And and that's the thing about stylization. You will end up with less details depending on what you want to do. But at this point I'm like at least 50% working from my visual library on of like what I have drawn already and what I want to draw. And I have, and everyone does as well, little bits and pieces of other information, either from older drawings or just series you've watched, a character design you just saw on Instagram, and maybe without even you knowing, it just made its way to your brain. Maybe I want to make the head like a collar. Of course, I don't know where the selection went. Okay, now I'm gonna make the whole thing smaller because I wanna put some other details in there. So what I'm placing these lines based on is just the connection between the cheekbone and the jawline, like this head base, basically. You know, when you have this shape, sort of. And the key is also, if you're using this as a guide for shading or anything like that, you need to understand the purpose without just mindlessly drawing it. It cannot give you the guide that it was made for. You know, you need to know that how the planes are changing, that these are top planes facing upside, and these are also top planes, and the other one is like the nose ridge. You know, if from a side view we have a skull and we have the nose come out, here's the cheekbone underneath, and that's where the top jaw comes down, and this line is connecting the top jaw to the bottom, basically because you have one bone here, another bone here, and the skin is like a cloth you stretch in between. So that's why I said on the other character that she gotta eat more, is because this line is only gonna show on characters very prominently if they have close to no body fat, because if you have some fat, that's gonna accumulate on the face here. So you see, normal character with anorexia, back to normal, eat a burger. And again, I think you can see how that's part of stylization, because you have the template, you have the knowledge of the purpose of each of the components of that template, and then you can use it however you want. Oh my god, I could go crazy with Photoshop's dumbest function of, if you press down E and then erase, then you hold it up, it's gonna go back to brush. But many times I press it the millisecond before I would let go, and that results in it switching back to the previous tool when I didn't mean to. Some muscle, very basic. I'm gonna have her like a thin chest profile and wide shoulders, but this one's leaning more to the back, and both are leaning to the back. So you know, the shoulders, that's another thing. Shoulders, they have a resting position, and they can move individually. And don't forget that if you draw this orientation, it's mainly for the chest's orientation. You know, you have the neck here, the trapezoid, is that the, I think that's the muscle, and the collarbone. Okay, we gotta have a thicker neck for this individual because the shoulders are far. You know, some muscles connecting in, but from here you can rest the shoulders down, almost slouching them, so not just down but also inside. It's moving in a circular motion, sort of. Try it yourself, that's the easiest. Try how your shoulder comes forward and back. And if you're slouching, the reason I sound weird is because I'm slouching myself and checking, it goes down and forward. From a default position, you can just push it down. You can push it down a little when you're also stretching. When you're trying to take up this straight position. But if you're slouching, they're coming inside as well. So what that's gonna do is, yeah, down, inside, and the muscles are still connecting. So those are gonna have this kind of profile. The collarbone is connected to that, like the side of the shoulder. So, previously it went like this. And I'm checking, like it was going in an upward angle. And now it's gonna go straight because we shifted it down. The anchor point is here. That's where it's always gonna go. It's connected to the top of the rib cage. It's gonna go down. And what else is gonna happen is the chest, the side of the chest muscle, this part, is also gonna go lower. But the bottom of the chest is still connected to the same parts. Same goes for the top. So, oh my god, I just figured that Control E is the merge down. Would not have had to right click every single time. Anyways, so put it back up. The chest connects somewhat into the armpit. And goes down. Connects, comes down. But now we slouching, so it's going down. And this part is gonna get more stretched. And this is gonna straighten out. Wait, let me put them in level so you can more easily see the difference. Wait, are they in level? Bruh. Okay, so where the chest muscle connects, same. It's just for extra accuracy, but you can still see how the whole profile of the chest is changing and is kind of getting pushed down, gaining a more circular shape. And if we put the other shoulder back up, not back up, but we lift even higher, it's also gonna come inside a little. Check the vertical location of your shoulder. So it's in base position, you put your hand to it, and you lift up your shoulder, and then you move your hand up to the level of your shoulder. You'll notice that you have to go a little bit inside because, again, it's moving in an arch. Base position, higher position, lower position. So it changes, and then you connect all the rest of the muscles. Collarbone follows up. Whoops. Chest follows up. And it rotated. So now the side part, this here, is gonna kind of disappear in the back. And you'll see the traps All these the traps. I just know this muscle, that muscle. I gotta learn the actual muscle names so I can sound scientific in videos. You see? Stretching. Bunch of stretching. Anyways, I think I'll end the video here because you see the thing. So what I meant to say is, yeah, that's the reason I'm having, or the thought process I'm having behind her putting her, like, pushing her shoulders down and like really leaning forward with her chest being pushed towards us. So I'm kind of hiding this arm a little bit. You know, you can almost imagine that position where she's like looking all cheeky, chest forward, hips here, hands behind back. You see? I hope it makes sense. I'm trying my best to be quick about it. But yeah, shoulders, hands going behind back. And I think you can see the resemblance between the two positions, two poses, energy. Actually, let's mirror back. It'll still make sense. Or do they? Anyways, I'm actually gonna end this now. So I hope you liked it. That's about it. See you.